Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu, asta'inuhu, astaghfiruhu. Na'udhu billahi min shuri anfusina min sayyati. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, huwa alladhi jalna muslimin. Only Allah guides in the right way. Other people try to guide us, but they can't. Only Allah guides. We have seen that recently in the things that have been happening around the world. In particular, in the Holy Land, we've seen such atrocities going on. On both sides. However, the effect on the entire world has never been so positive for Islam. The proof is in the number of people accepting Islam and why. They say that I see people who are behaving so peacefully and dealing with the atrocities so wonderfully. And I always had a negative opinion of these people. But suddenly, I have to look. And many of them are crying when they're saying this in their videos that they post on the internet. And then you see that person, the same person, a couple of days later, crying and accepting Islam because they read the Quran. Now, in the cases of the people that are in that area, they speak Arabic. So they can read the Quran in that language, in the Arabic language, which it came in Arabic. But what about the people all around the world coming into Islam on translations of the Quran? MashaAllah. And do you know, and I didn't know that until this year, when AI came out and was available for everybody on the internet, by the way, one day I just decided I'm going to see what is the origin of the translation to the English of the Quran. And I thought it would be George Sale because he did it in the 1700s or somebody like this. But it was all the way back to when English was only 30 years old. 30 years old? In 1066 AD, that was the beginning of the English language. 30 years later, actually 29 years, if you want to be specific, it was translated or mistranslated into the English language. And we have, as English speakers, been relying on that ever since it was done. We have George Sale, but he used that and picked up some corrections. Then we have Marmaduke Pickthall, and he used that, the one from George Sale, and made some corrections. Muhammad Yusuf Ali, you know, the famous one, he made some corrections and he added Iqbal to it. I don't know if you know that. The original, he had Iqbal in the paragraphs but it was centered instead of right justified or left justified. Anyway, so this is critically important to us to know who the first translator was and why was it mistranslated. You can check it out if you have any doubts. Go to AI and type in what I did. Who was the first translator of the Quran to the English language? You'll find out. It wasn't even a Muslim. But it was a religious person. A Catholic bishop. And they used that to stimulate the war on Muslims in Jerusalem. Huh? What? How could you translate the Quran and it stimulate you to war? Well, they translated the word waqtuluhum as slaughter them. Huh? And they mistranslated the part about if they stop, you have to stop. So the original translation had a lot of things in it. For instance, the treatment of women. وَضْرِبُهُنَّ, scourge them. What is scourge? That is something that's reserved for a ship at sea. They don't do that scourging anywhere else except that. Why? Because it's somebody who is trying to do a mutiny against the captain of the ship. And if they do that, they throw the captain overboard. And he becomes shark bait. All right? So when he catches anybody doing a mutiny, he scourges them before they throw them overboard. Now, what is scourge? They rip their shirt off, tie them to the mast, the center pole of the, sailboats, and then they whip them with a cat of nine tails. Yeah. And then throw them overboard. Wait a minute. Some cases, they will throw salt water on the guy before they let him, so he has extra pain before he becomes shark bait. Is that something that you could imagine doing to anybody, much less your beloved wife? And they translated it like that. وَضْرِبُهُنَّ, oh my God, scourge them? When I saw that, I said, why would somebody do that? If you knew English, and I've always had my doubts about this, but I proved it, well, Allah proved it to me this year. 2023, we find out who was the original translator of the Quran. Now, there have been a lot of corrections to that. Slaughter became slay. Huh? It means the same exact thing. It's the short version of slaughter. Slay. Well, if you translate slaughter to Arabic, babiha, bab. That's the Arabic word for it. That's not qital. That doesn't even have any of the same letters. So what they did, they charged up their Christian soldiers with these guys are trying to promote a new religion. And by the way, the Catholic Church was losing a lot of people because they were coming over to Islam at that time. Until of course, the church says, oh, these guys are going to kill you. They're going to slaughter you. You have to go kill them. And they claim their book is without any kind of contradiction in it. But if we can prove that from the very first word, how about that? I have a point that I'm driving, but I would like to mention this one thing. The first word Jibril alayhi salam said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was what? Iqra. He didn't speak English. Who said read? He didn't say that. He said Iqra. What does Iqra mean? Who said recite? Yeah, you know. Iqra is the same word for Quran. It's the same source, it's the same root. Is that right? Yeah. Well, what do you call the guy, our brother, who leads the Salah during Taraweeh in Ramadan? What is he called? A qari. A qari. How do you translate qari? Reciter. Is that correct? You don't call him a reader. He doesn't stand there with a book and read it, does he? Huh? That's why they said we can prove it's wrong from the very first word. Because they made up, somebody made up. I'm not going to say they made it up. I don't know that. But there is a false hadith made saying, Ana Umi, Ana Umi. I don't know how to read. I don't know how to read. That's false. What he said was, Ma ana bikari. I'm not a reciter. Why? Because people who were reciters, known as reciters at that time, were like somebody that could throw words out there and poetry. They would make up poetry on the spot. And they could do that real easy. They were called reciters. And they had good memories because they could remember a lot of information and spout it off. They were the source of news. Yeah. But they made it rhyme so they could remember it. Anyway, the angel Jibril, this is a side note, was so excited to finally meet the Prophet Muhammad because he had been hearing about him ever since Adam. And so that is why he hugged him 3 times. He wasn't punishing him like they said. He was squeezing him, trying to say, read, read, read. That's the image that they gave. Instead, Jibril alayhi salam was saying to the Prophet sallallahu, recite for me. And then you would hug him. And then the Prophet says, Ma'ana bikari. Recite. And that was out of love, respect, honor, dignity. Not what they translated it as, being aggressive, putting him down. You better read. Because it wouldn't make any sense. And they said that. They said that to all of the people. It doesn't make any sense. Why would an angel that's supposed to be from God, so the angel doesn't know, this guy doesn't know how to read? And their God must not know. But our God knows everything. So go kill him before they kill you. And that's how they started the war against, they call it the Crusades. That's how it was started. And I always wondered about that because I grew up in the church, you know. And we were taught to sing a song that they later changed one word of it because they found it offensive. But when I was a kid, we sang, "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching off to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before." You know what word they changed? Like replaced off. Going off to war. Oh no, we didn't do that. Huh? We just like war. Just carrying the cross. That's what they changed. Anyway, for the benefit of those who don't know the Arabic language, or maybe you have parts of it, this is a very critical point in history. There's another one 400 years later that occurred, and it was equally, and I think maybe even more devastating, because that is when they took over the Inquisition. They took over Spain, Portugal, Italy, everywhere they went, they took it over by force. And if anybody even said anything like, Alhamdulillah, you were finished. So why bring it all up now? Because so many people are coming to Islam, especially in America, but that could turn the other way. If they get the copies that say read, then they get the doubt. This guy can't read. Huh? And then, if they take the time to go into Surah Baqarah, ayah 190, and it says, fight them if they fight you. Okay. But if they stop, you have to stop. This is the translation. Then it says, verily you become the aggressor, and Allah does not like the aggressors. Then the next verse, 191, that's the one that says, قِطَّ وَقْتُلُهُمْ. And they translate that as slaughter them. So if it doesn't say combat, that is what it should be. Because the same word is used in the first ayah, 190. The same word is used to start out the same word is used to start out the next ayah in 191. Why you said fight, and now why you said slaughter? Both words are combat, because they're combating you. They're not just fighting you, they're combating you. And if they combat you to the death, you can combat them to the death, but if they stop, you have to stop. We know in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ many examples of that, but that's not my point now. Also, the ayah translated or mistranslated as scourge the women. That is what they have been using all this time to give Islam a bad name. Oh, you chop off the heads. Well, that's slaughter. And you beat the women. Oh. وَضْرِبُهُنَّ is the word that's used by Allah. But that can have a range of many things. When the first time I asked one of the scholars about this, he stood up and he said, "This is daraba." And he was walking toward me. I can't go very far, I'll fall off. Anyway, so he said, "This is daraba." I said, "Walk on your wife?" He started laughing. He said, "No, but I was giving you an example so that you could see the wide range of daraba. It is usually a repetition of something. Usually a repetition of, like, striking something like a drum, like at least twice. And this is one of the translations that I've seen offered because it's a better admonition for the first thing. First tell her, then leave the bed, then وَضْرِبَهُنَّ. And then he said, it's a stronger admonition, stronger telling her. Like, example, how does this hit you? What are you talking about? I am talking, right? So how does this hit you? I used the word hit. But Allah uses that same word and it's translated as example. How does this hit you? And he gives you this example in the Quran. And he used methla with it. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is we need translations. All of that I said, we need better translations of the Quran. And so we brought samples of them. And right through those doors that are locked, you have to go around to one of those, but that's where our booth is that we have. And you can see it for yourself. See it and believe it, because that would be a much better one to give to the people. We have a free Quran website. It's called afreequran.com. No money. I don't want to charge anybody for that. So if anybody wants the rewards for that, they can talk to us about that and get help. But we want everybody, Muslims especially, to know what the translation is. Even if you know Arabic, know what the translation is and don't let people hammer you with these atrocities. Because that's what it is. If you know Arabic, you will find the Quran is so beautiful. I'll give you one example, then I'll sit down. One example. Allah tells us that we are the Ummatan Wasita. Yes? Right? What does that mean? It means we are the nation that is the middle way. And how can we know for sure that Surah Baqarah is from Allah? Guess what? There's 286 ayahs in Surah Baqarah. Divide that by 2. 143. Guess where it is? Right there. 143. Telling you you're the middle way. Reminding you. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. That gives me goosebumps. Let's make dua for all of the people on the planet to get the right understanding about Allah and His message. Ameen. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah Kareem. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu Muhammadin abduhu wa rasul. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We were talking about the Quran, and there is something that is called before every salat. And then the salat, of course, has Quran in it. But we repeat everything the muadhin says, yeah? Except what? Hayya ala salah. And what? Hayya ala falah. What was the thing that we say there? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Huh? You said that. But you said, when you were calling the adhan, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah. But why did we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah? What does that mean? La means no. Like La ilaha illallah, no God but except Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata. What is quwwata? Power. Yeah? There is no power except illa billah, except Allah. Now, when you go to college, many of you have been to college, many of you are going to college and preparing for college. One of the things that you maybe will wind up with is a psych class, psychology. In the first day, the professor usually, not always, but usually will say something like, maybe he'll give the example of the tooth fairy. Well, when you were a kid, you believed in the tooth fairy, but you know now there's no tooth fairy. And he gives you other examples like Halloween and things like this. But then all of a sudden he switches it over and he said, so how many still believe in there's a God? And nobody will raise their hand because they're looking around like, huh? If there's a Muslim in the class, he'll always raise their hand. Because that's part of our nature. We're ingrained with that since birth, many of us. Anyway, that is one of the ways they take you out of belief. Another way is by the word willpower. Do you have willpower? Most of you will say, yes, I did. I say, yeah, I have willpower. I used to lecture about that when I was a Christian. You can will things into being. Oh, yeah, just before you go to sleep at night, picture this. And then in the first thing you wake up in the morning, picture it again, and it will happen. Really? Huh? Seriously? What happened to La ilaha illallah? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What happened to that? Because you don't have any power. We have zero power. That is a big reminder. When you're calling people to the Salah, there is no power. There's nothing you can do without the help of Allah. So come on and communicate with Him. And by the way, the word Salah doesn't mean prayer. Does not mean prayer. Dua is translated as prayer, and it is a prayer. The Salah is a communication. Sila, you know Sila? Connection. It's a communication connection with Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Oh. When you say hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, you're talking about your connection with Allah. Whew. It's really big. But don't mistranslate it. Don't mistranslate that. I would like to end this khutbah by a broken English, broken Arabic, but I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of the true Muslims. And I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save all of us from the fiery of hell. Ameen. La ilaha illa anta subhanak inni kuntum min adh-dhalimin. La ilaha illa anta subhanak inni kuntum min adh-dhalimin. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no might, there is no power except the power of Allah. Iqam as-salah.
Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا وجعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة لتبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب وكل شيء فصلناه تفصيلا وكل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا اقرأ كتابك اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه، ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها، ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى، وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا. وإذا أردنا أن نهلك قرية أمرنا متر فيها ففسقوا فيها فحق عليها القول فدمرناها تدميرا. وكم أهلكنا من القرون من بعد نوح، وكفى بربك بذنوب عباده خبيرا بصيرا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.